Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome to the 15th session of the Lumion package. In this session we will finally move on to animation. At the beginning of the session we will review several high-quality masterpiece animations created with Lumion, and perhaps Corona for some interior shots. The majority of these animations were done in Lumion, and we want to use the techniques employed in them as a reference and guide for our own work. We must first analyze these techniques because animation is not like a simple still render shot where you just set the camera and render without a scenario. It must have a story and a concept behind it. The duration of your animation is very important. For example, we are planning an animation that is around 20 or at most 30 seconds long. We will focus on learning practical techniques for architectural animation. I have exported these animations separately. Let's first review the techniques and terms used in them, and then apply them to our own project. Okay, this is animation number 1. The first thing you notice is the highly detailed and intricate arrangement of the project. The trees, houses, and lawns are perfectly suited for this environment. The most important point here is the use of characters, personnel in the scene. These moving people and cars give meaning to our animation. The camera placement here uses our first technique, starting in this section and moving the camera. If I want to do this in Lumion, I can go to the movie section. I don't need to work with the effects here. I can simply copy the effects we applied in the photo mode. We go to the movie section and start our first animation. For creating an animation, we have several sequences. Clips. You can render each sequence separately or prepare them all as one final video. We are going to set up our first sequence, clip 1 now. There are 3 different options for creating camera animation. The first one is record, which means I can precisely record the movement using navigation controls, like W, Q, A, S. I go to the top view. The animation should start here, so I must press Add Keyframe once for the starting point, then perform my movement, and press Add Keyframe again when the movement is finished. So start point, add keyframe, end point, add keyframe. The options here relate to camera settings and lens. For the animation, we don't necessarily need to change the cinematic framing, but we can set it to 1:1, for instance, so unnecessary parts are not rendered. 1:1 or 16:9 framing is suitable. If I want a vertical story-like aspect ratio, like 9:16 or 0.8, I can use the flip feature to convert the horizontal frame HDTV to vertical. After setting the frame, you must always update the keyframe. If you don't update it, the next time you return, it will revert to the initial settings. The speed, seconds of the animation is crucial. I will set it to 4 or 5 seconds. Ensure that clipping is not happening in the animation. I correct the lens and hit update. Perfect. This is our first sequence, which is raw. I will paste the effects we copied from the photo section here. I use the copy effects menu and hit paste here. This usually causes image corruption due to one of the effects, 2-point perspective, which shifts the camera. The HDRI gives a good result, but there is too much burn overexposure. We need to control this burn. The main issue is not the general scene exposure, but rather extra effects like glow causing the burn. By reducing gamma, the burning issue is resolved. However, color correction for animation is generally best performed in specialized software like After Effects or DaVinci Resolve. Our 3080 GPU is currently maxed out on VRAM. 60% of 12 GB is used due to the high detail assets. We are looking for a 3090, as that card has 24 GB of VRAM and allows us to easily manage much heavier scenes. We did test a 3090 previously, but because it was used for mining, it had strange rendering issues and didn't offer a significant speed difference compared to the 3080. We have reinstalled the 3080 and are satisfied with it, and we will complete the rest of the Lumion package with this card. I will just change the sky position and use a new sky. Excellent. So that concludes the first sequence. Practice this before we move to the next one. Star Sequence 2. Star. In the next sequence, the camera moves out of the aerial view and enters the main project area, a residential and commercial complex. Pay attention to the music cue, the main beat of the music, as sequences should change exactly on the beat. All sequences you've seen so far can be achieved using the same record technique: movement from right to left, left to right, bottom to top. We must use animated personnel, as some Lumion human assets are static while others are moving. You can also see the moving shadows. HDRI movement cannot be animated because the real sky effect lacks a keyframe option. I will use record for the second sequence. I want a beautiful shot of the water with depth of field, DOF. If you want the camera to remain still for a few seconds, just place 2 keyframes back to the back at the same spot. I want the camera to pause first and then zoom towards the building. I adjust the speed about 8 seconds. In the next shot, the camera should gradually approach the building. I place another keyframe and perform the zoom movement towards the structure. Perfect! I paste the effects. Fortunately, we have no rendering issues. Now I must set the camera. I had the depth of field effect and set the focus point on the water. Using autofocus and its settings, I want both the background and foreground to be blurred while the water remains in focus. This could also be done by adding new keyframes for the focus point, but for now, the automatic setting looks good. In this sequence, we must enhance the water. I activate the reflection settings on the water to ensure reflections are calculated correctly. I want to add an aerial moving element, like a helicopter, to this sequence. In the Objects section, I place a helicopter in a path as if it is passing by. I can also add flying birds. Birds are animated by default. The helicopter needs to be animated manually. I go to Movie, Effects, and then the Animation section. I use the simple move effect. I hit Edit, set the start position and the end position so the helicopter moves across the scene during the clip duration. Its speed is automatically relative to the clip duration. Next, I add sound. I create a new layer for sound. I place the sound of nature, sea, and increase the sound radius so the sea is audible. I also add a helicopter or airplane sound, but I reduce the music volume so that the ambient sound bird stays in the background. I also want something to happen on the water. I add the HDR real sky effect but reduce its intensity. Since I want a sunset theme, I change real sky to dusk. Now I need to control the sun. I animate the sun using height and heading settings. I place 1 keyframe at the start and 1 at the end, adjusting the movement very subtly to demonstrate the element of motion. Also, adjust the lens flare to enhance the realism of direct sunlight hitting the lens. Be careful not to overuse these effects, as they can ruin the render quality. Finally, I add the wind effect and reduce its speed so that only the vegetation moves slightly. I also add a wind sound in the background. Our depth of field looks fine. I slightly reduce the scene's exposure to emphasize the dusk theme. Shadows must be soft, as we don't have harsh shadows during sunset. Everything is ready for the second sequence render. We can render it individually, render clip at 4K resolution,